Hey, what's up and how's it going, everyone? Well, I'm so glad that you have took your time to spend with me right here today on the MRB Wrestling Review Show. I'm your co-host, Mike McRock Wilson, and we just saw TNA Impact Wrestling. And what I'll do on this video is do something different. Instead of going from start to finish, I'll start what I really enjoyed about the show and the thing that I really least liked about the show, and with the as well as the results of the matches as well, and my thoughts on that. And let's get right down to it. I thought the best segment on TNA on tonight's episode was the segment involving Kurt Angle and Bobby Roode. What happened was that Kurt Angle came out and he really gave a good solid promo, delivering his lines very well. He just never disappoints when it comes to delivering his promos. He's absolutely great at it. And he really built interest going into his match against Bobby Roode at Bound for Glory. And then, of course, Bobby Roode will come out and argue with Kurt Angle. They both talked about the Hall of Fame, putting that part of the element in that story in there, and it works very well from the segment that happened last week when Bobby Roode was inducted into the Ego Hall of Fame and Kurt Angle being inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame. So those two little storylines actually really mix well going into this match at Bound for Glory. And what I also liked about that segment is like how they brought up Bobby Roode bringing up his loss to Kurt Angle that happened 2 years ago at Bound for Glory. So maybe this is a way for maybe Bobby Roode will win this match, and then probably have a tiebreaker at the next big pay-per-view. They could go that way, but the way they had the segment going and who has momentum could lead to Kurt Angle being the one that goes over Bobby Roode. Because what happened was that, shortly after, they exchanged words, they got into a fight, and then when Kurt Angle got the upper hand, Cassidy Daniels came out and spoiled the party, and then Bobby Roode made Kurt Angle tap to the crossface. And throughout that entire segment, they kept referring to making each other tap out. It's a wonder they never made this match a submission match and would still have great effect going into Bound for Glory. And with all that being said, I think this match has the potential to steal the show this Sunday on pay-per-view. The thing that I really didn't like about last night's episode was there was actually not much that I really didn't like, because it was a great, solid show last night, and I'm really looking forward to some of these matches. But there's one match on the card that just feels like a throwaway, and that's the Knockouts Championship match involving ODB, Brooke, and Gail Kim. For two reasons. One, the match feels like a throwaway, as well as Gail Kim being in that match as well. And I think that, there's very little build-up when it comes to Gail Kim being in this match. Yes, I know she is a great wrestler inside the ring, but there's just no build-up with her and no reaction, with no interaction between her and ODB. There's a little backstage segment with Gail and Brooke. That was about it. But the only really thing that they really focus on going into this match is Lady Taba and who will she target next. I feel like it just takes away the whole idea of a championship match, because they're concentrating on who Lady Taba is going to attack next. And it's unfortunate because the Knockouts division is not what it used to be years ago on TNA, and so it's kind of falling flat, and I think something really needs to give in the Knockouts division. But TNA can only do so much, apparently. Alright, so the show kicked off when Dixie Carter came out and she talked about what happened last week about the interaction between Bully Ray and AJ Styles when Bully gained the upper hand, and Dixie Carter placed a bounty on AJ Styles for $50,000 and see who will cash in and collect on that bounty. And what I really like about that show last night, we see throughout in backstage segments where AJ Styles would be in a fight with someone like Jesse or a Bad Influence, even Chris Sabin trying to look for AJ as well. So it really feels like, all these guys are so desperate to collect the bounty, and it's the heels that are looking for the bounty, and it makes total sense for those kind of guys to try to collect on AJ Styles. And we saw that little stare down between AJ Styles and James Storm, and James Storm just kind of nodded to AJ, to say, I'm not going to collect, I'm a good guy. It makes total sense because he is a good guy. So, I like how they're really playing it smart on TNA tonight on their episode. And the only thing that I don't like about that first segment on TNA was Dixie Carter. Even though she got her point across, she's trying too hard to be a villain, and she kind of really needs to tone it down a little bit. She's not very believable. She needs to work on her acting. And I think with that said, I think if she does all that, she would be a perfect heel for a boss. But, it's just kind of going off in a left turn. It just don't feel right the way Dixie Carter is acting as a heel. That's just my take on that. But when Bully Ray came out shortly after she had her words, you can hear Bully Ray's sore throat, but you know what? It doesn't make him any less louder because he's a great talker. And with that said, I like how he mentioned how he's going to beat AJ Styles, and we saw in that contract signing, he mentioned that I am the Darth Vader of TNA and you're no Luke Skywalker. The delivery of that line was just so amazing. It just made me excited going into this match as well. And I'm actually going to tie this into the contract signing. What happened was that Magnus came out after Bully Ray exchanged words and said that he will fight Bully Ray for free. He don't need to collect on AJ's bounty because he's a good guy as well. So, the good guys and the bad guys remain consistent throughout that show, which is really smart on the part of TNA. And with that said, Magnus challenges Bully Ray to a one-on-one non-title match, which I'll get to later on, and will also tie into the match upcoming between Magnus and Sting. So every story has been told in this last TNA episode 3 days before Bound for Glory, and I think after last night, I'm ready for Bound for Glory. And with that said, I will also get to that later on. Eric Young, Hernandez, Robbie E, and Daniels were in a four corners match, and whoever wins this match gains the upper hand, gains momentum going into the tag team turmoil match on the pre-show, and the winner would be, the last team to come out in the tag team turmoil match. And what I really like about that match, there was really interesting dynamics in this match. You had the two heel guys, Robbie E and Daniels, kind of working as a cohesive unit, but in the same time, having communication issues as well, because it's every man for himself, or in this case, every team for themselves going into Bound for Glory. And what happened was that Robbie E got the victory, and it just felt like it was a real surprise that Robbie E actually won a match, because he hasn't won a match in such a long time. And I kind of like that, because it's unexpected and really interesting to have that left turn for Robbie E to win, to gain momentum going into Bound for Glory. And usually when someone has momentum going into a match, another team or the other opponent will tend to be the one to win the match. So I don't know if I see the Bromans winning this tag team match. I will do a prediction video later on, but I think that the team, there's a couple of teams I'm interested to see. Chavo and Hernandez maybe are bad influence, and I think one of those teams would make more sense than any other team going into this gauntlet match this coming Sunday on the pre-show match. Also, we saw, like I said, backstage when Dixie Carter said she's going to collect the bounty, we saw Jesse come out and attack AJ from backstage. Shortly after, AJ Styles came out and talked about how Dixie Carter is desperate to get rid of him, and showing her true colors as well, and trying to take the easy way out. And what AJ Styles done was that he challenged anyone who wants to collect on the bounty. And we saw backstage when Bully Ray mentioned that take out AJ Styles to Knox and to Garrett Bischoff as well. Those two came out and tried to collect on the bounty. And of course, AJ Styles, got the upper hand and, went away for a bit, because what happened was that as soon as you think Aces and Eights got AJ, Storm and Gunner came out and had their tag team match as well. And, well, I actually, no, it wasn't really a tag team match. It was Gunner versus Knox. And also we saw backstage, in that segment with Bully Ray and Aces and Eights, he mentioned that, okay, I'm going to have your back and I'll have your back. What happened was that Gunner got the victory over Knox. And I like that, because if Gunner lost that match at all, they would lose a lot of credibility going into Bound for Glory in their tag team championship match, whoever they're going to face for the tag team titles. So it really wouldn't make sense for Gunner to lose that match. So, it was smart for him to go over in that match. As well as how Knox lost that match, he was looking for Bully Ray from backstage to come out and help out the Aces and Eights. And what happened was that he was a no-show, and that cost Knox the match. I think that's another great setup for something that happened probably at Bound for Glory. The last draw, the last ride-off piece for the big split of Aces and Eights. And I think that was a smart, decision. You don't want to rush into a week and month-long build-up to a big breakup of a group. You want to create that right moment going into the biggest event of the year. I think Bound for Glory will be the official write-off for the Aces and Eights. Also, we saw, let's see, we saw, Chris Sabin. He was looking for AJ backstage. He got Samoa Joe instead. Those two had a match. That's another matchup coming, the Ultimate X match. There's 5 guys on it. Here's the only nitpicking thing I kind of don't like. They're trying to compete with WWE's Money in the Bank concept, where they have these all-stars in a match try to climb up something, a ladder, well, in this case, cables, to get that briefcase. Only in this case, it's the X Division belt, and that belt will gain an opportunity for someone to cash in for the World Heavyweight Championship. I thought that was a little bit on the too much of the WWE aspect of TNA, and I think, they kind of need to tone it down a bit. But with that said, I'm actually looking forward to this match, because what happened was that Samoa Joe won over Chris Sabin, And what I really like about that match was that, there was a little bit of suspense as well. The referee was counting out Samoa Joe, and when he got to 9, he just dove right in the ring. And I was like, whoa, man, that was close. And after the match, you see all the guys came out making their statements. Austin Aries, Jeff Hardy, Chris Sabin as well as Manic. And I thought that was really, really great how all those guys went back and forth, and how Manic went up on the ladder and dove off of it onto Chris Sabin and Austin Aries. I'm actually looking forward to this match now because, we see all these guys interacting with each other finally 3 days before the show, and I think I'm ready for Bound for Glory. Also, we saw Magnus go one-on-one with Bully Ray. Well, I really don't have anything much to say about this match other than the fact that it was actually a good, solid match between Magnus and Bully Ray. And what happened was that, Bully Ray almost had the match won when he had the steel chain wrapped around his hand, about to cheat his way to victory, only to have Sting come out and try to right that wrong. And it cost Magnus the match because the referee kind of got knocked out. Bully Ray tried to use the chain. Sting came out trying to interfere. Well, not really interfere, but even the odds, because Bully Ray was about to cheat, only to have Bully Ray low blow Magnus to gain the upper hand and get the victory. And that needed to happen because if Bully Ray even lost that match, he would lose credibility going into Bound for Glory. So he needed to have that win, that pinfall victory, to gain momentum going into his World Championship match with AJ Styles. And Magnus really kind of didn't need to lose either because he would lose momentum, but the way that he lost was justified because it was involved in a screwy finish. And what happened after that was we saw the interaction between Sting and Magnus, and we see this tension building up going into their match at Bound for Glory. And it almost feels like, this could be a sleeper going into this Sunday, but we'll see what happens in just 3 days. And the main event was the contract signing. We saw Bully Ray and AJ Styles. What I really like about that segment was that, we got to see, a little bit of a history lesson when Bully Ray was on the microphone. He talked about Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes back in '85 and how Ric Flair put hard times on Dusty Rhodes and the company. And then he kind of compared himself to Ric Flair, how he was giving TNA hard times when he took out Hulk Hogan out of the company, and being involved in Aces and Eights as well in that lockdown match with Jeff Hardy, etc., etc. And I like how AJ Styles countered that and said, do not ever compare yourself to Ric Flair. And I think, that was really, really interesting because we all know Bully Ray is one of the masters now at dirty tactics. And just to compare himself to Ric Flair at this point in his career, here's the interesting thing. Ric Flair is here. Alright? Say this is Ric Flair. Here's Bully Ray. He's almost there, but not quite, so I didn't understand why Bully Ray really needed to compare himself to Ric Flair, as well as Dusty Rhodes to AJ, because I like what AJ said. AJ said that he is no Dusty Rhodes, and he actually admitted to it when Bully Ray admitted to being a Ric Flair. So I like how that counter interaction worked well with each other in their promo. So I'm really ready for this match for Bound for Glory. The World Heavyweight Championship match is coming, as well as Ethan and he's coming to Bound for Glory as well. I think that's the right way to go, because what better way to make your debut on the biggest show of TNA? And that was my review of Impact Wrestling for the MRB Wrestling Review Show. I'm your co-host, Mike McRock Wilson. Get plenty of rest and always do your best.